She left the lake house key on my nightstand, but forgot to delete the hotel booking confirmation with Paul from her email. I wasn't supposed to see it. I wasn't supposed to notice that the password to her laptop hadn't changed. But when you love someone long enough, you learn every detail, even the ones they think you've forgotten. Zoe had said she was going up early to air out the house before summer. That was always her excuse when she wanted to be alone. I trusted her. I built that place for her. Every piece of furniture, every wine glass, every dim light setting, she picked it. I just paid for it. I always did. And yet, while I was stuck in traffic trying to get up there for the weekend, I got the notification. A calendar alert she forgot to turn off. Lakeview Lodge Suite confirmed for 2 guests. I sat in my car, engine running, parked on the shoulder while trucks flew by. I read it 3 times before the blood stopped rushing in my ears. Paul. Of all people, she chose him. A friend who once asked me for a loan. A man who'd stood in my home and said grace at my table. And now he was checking into the property I bought with my wife, using the sheets I ordered and the wine I stocked. I didn't rage. I didn't call. I didn't even go. Instead, I called my realtor. I asked her how fast a lake house could sell without listing it. She asked, "Are you sure?" I answered, "I'm not going back, so they shouldn't stay long." And I didn't flinch. Not when the offer came in. Not when I countered. And not when I signed the final papers. But I did make one request, that the new owner check in personally and hand-deliver the key to the couple inside. Michael, 34. Quiet by nature. Not because I have nothing to say, but because I learned. Young, that people reveal themselves best in silence. I've spent most of my life building things no one believed I could. My father once told me, "You don't get to be emotional and successful, choose one." I chose the second. Emotions? I buried them beneath every deal I closed, every mortgage I paid off, every hour I spent earning the silence my wife now uses against me. Zoe came into my life when I was still clawing my way out of student debt. She worked in PR, all charm and polish, and I was just a contractor who showed up early to meetings because I didn't want to miss a chance. She liked how composed I was. I liked how unapologetically ambitious she sounded. We didn't fall in love, we aligned. She wanted someone stable. I wanted someone who knew how to thrive in a room full of people who looked down on me. We became a power couple the moment our bank accounts merged. We were functional, attractive. We looked like everything other couples wished they were. But Zoe didn't marry for love. She married for momentum, for optics, for a man who wouldn't embarrass her in front of clients. She knew I wouldn't cheat. She knew I wouldn't gamble, drink, or slip up. I was safe, so she stopped trying. In the beginning, she laughed at my dry sarcasm. Now it's like she doesn't even hear me speak. I take her to dinners where she keeps her phone on the table. I bring her flowers that end up in the trash 2 days later. I get home late from meetings and she's already locked herself in the guest room, claiming she's tired, stressed, not in the mood. I don't push. I never did. That was my mistake. We bought the lake house on our 5th anniversary. It was Zoe's dream retreat. She said it would help us reconnect. But once it was finished, she started visiting without me. Just for a weekend. Just to breathe. Just to write. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to. Paul was a client of hers. One of those overly polished, too friendly types, always smiling too wide, always complimenting Zoe too openly in front of me. He once said, "Michael, you're lucky your wife's this sharp. If I had a Zoe, I'd never stop thanking God." I laughed then. Now I wish I'd broken his jaw. I remember the last dinner we had with Paul. He insisted on paying. Ordered Zoe's. Wine without asking. She laughed too hard at his jokes. I sat there, sipping from a glass I didn't want, watching her forget I was at the table. That night, she said she was heading to the lake house again. I didn't argue. I had a conference call early. I told her to be safe. She kissed my cheek like I was her brother and left before dawn. That was 3 days ago. Now I sit in the condo we barely furnished, staring at the single photo we framed on the entry table. It's from our honeymoon. She's leaning into me, both of us sunburned. I remember how proud I was back then. Like I'd finally made it. Like she was the reward. I should have seen it earlier. Should have noticed how she always packed light for her lake trips but wore perfume. Should have questioned why she changed the sheets every time she came back but barely touched them when we stayed together. Should have known when she bought that second toothbrush just in case and left it at the lake house. Zoe was slipping away quietly, and I was giving her the room to go. I don't scream, I don't throw things. That's not who I am, but I never forget, and I never let betrayal walk away thinking it won. The betrayal didn't hit me like a thunderclap. It sank in slow, like poison. One line in one email, buried between client invoices and an automated resort confirmation. Your lake house guest registration for 2 is now confirmed under Zoe W. No last name. Just an assumption. A whisper of intimacy. At first, I wanted to believe it was an error, that she'd booked for a friend, that it was work, that maybe I was being paranoid. So I clicked through. Then I saw Paul's name listed under companion. There it was. No metaphors, no doubt, just 2 names. 1 house, 1 bed. I didn't confront her. I didn't drive up. I didn't call. Instead, I opened my laptop and accessed the smart security system I installed a year ago. Zoe had insisted on it. For safety, she said, though I think she just liked the idea of being able to unlock the door with her phone. She never bothered to change the permissions. When the feed loaded, I clicked through the camera logs. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, back porch, they were there. Zoe in her robe, Paul shirtless drinking my whiskey. I watched 10 seconds, maybe less. That was all I needed. Zoe wasn't just stepping out. She was comfortable. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was routine, practiced, rehearsed, and that's what killed me. Not the infidelity, not even the fact that it was Paul, but the ease, the way she smiled at him, the familiarity, the ownership of a house I built for us, and how easily she made it theirs. I closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened a folder titled Legal and Title Docs Property and sent an email to my real estate lawyer. Subject line, sell the lake house, quietly, immediately. Then I waited. By the next morning, I had 2 offers, one from a private investor looking to flip, one from a corporate holding firm that didn't care who was in it now as long as they were out by Monday. I took the second, faster, cleaner, but I asked for one thing, that the transfer papers be delivered in person, and that the new owner hand the couple the checkout key themselves. I never told Zoe. I let her enjoy the weekend. Let her swim in the lake, cook her breakfast, pretend. By Monday, the lake house would no longer be ours. She just didn't know it yet. A day later, Zoe texted me. Had such a restful weekend. Got home safe. Let's talk later this week. Love. You. I stared at that message for a full minute. Love you. She still had the nerve to say it. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't rise. But something inside me closed, quietly and permanently. Whatever part of me that still wanted to believe in us died right there. Because love doesn't humiliate you. Love doesn't lie to your face and then ask you to hold its hand. Love doesn't pretend everything's fine after sharing your pillow with someone else. And I was done being the fool who smiled through it. Didn't sleep the night after the sale closed. Not because I had doubts, but because I didn't feel anything. That terrified me more than rage would have. More than heartbreak. I lay there in our bed, Zoe's perfume still lingering faintly on the sheets, and all I could think about was how numb I was. How clean betrayal can feel when it settles in the chest like a final piece to a puzzle you never wanted to solve. Every memory twisted in my head like a knife. Zoe in the passenger seat, brushing hair from her eyes. Zoe barefoot in the kitchen, humming some song I never recognized. Zoe laughing, too loudly, at Paul's joke in our dining room, acting like I wasn't standing right there. I'd always made excuses for her. She was tired, stressed, burned, out. But the truth was simpler. She stopped caring, and I refused to see it. The lake house had been my last effort to save something already dead. The place was supposed to bring us back, give us a reset. I spent months overseeing construction, picked stone that matched the shade of her eyes, designed the kitchen layout. Around her cooking habits, she came twice with me, then started making excuses. "You go, babe, I trust your taste." No, she didn't trust me. She just didn't care. Now she was probably sipping wine on that porch, legs folded over Paul's lap, not knowing the deed had changed hands, that she was technically trespassing. I wondered if she even felt guilty. Probably not. Guilt is reserved for people who think about consequences. I thought about texting her. One line, "Hope you enjoyed your last weekend there," but I didn't. Not yet. There was something heavier I wanted her to feel. Realization. That sharp moment of collapse when someone understands they were never holding the cards. I was quiet for days. When Zoe called, I let it ring. When she texted, I read but didn't respond. I wasn't playing games. I was pulling back the curtain, letting her sit in that space between confusion and fear, wondering what I knew, what I'd seen. That's the part that gnaws at cheaters. Not being caught, but not knowing if they've been caught. I started rehearsing in my head the confrontation I never planned to have. What would I say? Would I call her a liar? Would I ask her how long it had been? Would I let her pretend it was a mistake? Or would I just say nothing, hand her the checkout envelope, turn around and walk away? Sometimes silence is louder than revenge. Meanwhile, I watched Paul's social media from a fake account. He posted a photo of a sunset over the lake with the caption, "Nothing heals like still water." I almost laughed. He didn't know that water was about to become someone else's. I saw Zoe like a stranger after that. When she walked past me in the apartment, when she said morning without making eye contact, when she tossed her coat onto the couch like nothing was broken. I didn't see my wife anymore. I saw a person playing pretend. A woman wearing the role of loving partner while her soul checked out 3 months ago. I kept waiting for her to confess, to slip up, to give me something. But Zoe wasn't that kind of cheater. She was careful, clean, smiled at all the right times, said, "I love you" just enough to blur the lines, and I let her. That's what hurts most. Not the betrayal, but the fact that I let her feel safe while she was doing it. So I sat in that emotional fog. I ate less, slept less, worked more, focused on numbers, on transactions, on things that didn't lie to me. Paper doesn't cheat. Contracts don't smile in your face while thinking about someone else. The only person I allowed in was Leah, my business partner. She'd known me long before Zoe. She saw the change in me without asking. "You look like you haven't slept in days," she said during a meeting. "I haven't," I replied. "Trouble at home?" I didn't answer. But she didn't need one. Leah's the kind of woman who reads between silences. "You don't need to explain," she finally said. "But if you're unraveling, unravel smart. Don't light the whole thing on fire just to watch her burn." I appreciated that. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to expose her. I was going to do something colder. I was going to walk her into her own consequences, let her breathe in what she'd destroyed, until the weight of it became unbearable. And when she finally asked, "Michael, what happened?" I'd hand her the key and tell her she no longer lives there. It happened the night before she found out. Zoe came home earlier than expected, heels in one hand, hair pinned loosely like she'd tried to make it look casual. She stood in the doorway of our apartment and watched me for a moment. Just watched, like she was trying to measure how much I knew. "Hey," she said carefully, almost softly. I didn't answer. I was reading, or pretending to. She stepped inside, her voice floating behind her. "I passed by the lake house earlier. Something's off. The lockbox is gone." I turned a page. My expression didn't change. I tried the door code and it wouldn't work. "Did you change it?" Still no response. Zoe sat across from me, fingers laced in her lap. She always did that when she was hiding something, held her hands still, as if silence made her blameless. Then came the twist. She finally looked me dead in the eye and said, "Michael, You're acting strange, and I need to tell you something before it gets worse. My pulse didn't move, but my mind sharpened. Here it comes. She inhaled. Paul's been texting. Me. It's nothing serious, just some flirtation. I didn't want to tell you because it wasn't real. I didn't act on it. She lied to my face, after everything I knew. Everything I'd seen, she still chose to lie. You're saying it never happened? I asked, calm like winter. She nodded quickly. I swear. I let her sit in that lie for a full 10 seconds before I stood, walked to the sideboard drawer, and pulled out a white envelope. I placed it gently on the table between us. What's this? She asked. I didn't speak, just leaned back and waited. She opened it and froze. Inside was a printed copy of the deed transfer, a screenshot of the security camera feed, her laughing in the kitchen with Paul, and the final page, a brief note from the new owners stating that current guests needed to vacate immediately. Zoe didn't blink for a while. She just stared. And when she finally did look up, her face crumbled. You sold it? Her voice cracked. I did. Without telling me? You weren't using it with me, were you? Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I continued, my voice level. I didn't change the code. The code changed itself the moment you and Paul walked through that door thinking it was still yours. She stood up, fists clenched, trying to find footing in the chaos. You went through my emails? I didn't answer. She stepped forward. You spied on me? No, I said. You just left the door open. I walked through. Zoe's breathing grew shallow. You had no right. You had no loyalty. That shut her up, and for the first time I saw it. Not guilt, not even fear. Panic. Because the life she'd built, the facade she maintained, the secrets she thought were buried, were unraveling faster than she could control. I picked up the envelope again, tucked it back in the drawer, and turned away. I hope Paul was worth it, I said. She didn't stop me. But later that night, I found her sitting alone on the balcony, curled into herself, scrolling through photos on her phone. Maybe she was looking for one that still felt real. Maybe she was realizing there weren't any left. Zoe never went back to the lake house. She couldn't. The locks had changed, the papers were final, and the new owners had already begun renovations. But she kept circling around the idea, like a ghost haunting a place that no longer belonged to her. Every time I walked into the apartment, I could feel the tension thick in the air. She was unraveling, and for once, I wasn't offering comfort. I wasn't offering anything at all. A few nights later, I came home to find her seated at the kitchen counter, wine glass untouched, eyes puffy but no tears falling. She looked at me like someone drowning and too proud to ask for help. Michael, she said, can we talk? I didn't stop moving. About what? Her voice trembled. You don't even care anymore, do you? No, I said plainly, setting down my keys. I cared until the moment you gave our bed to someone else. She flinched, then stood up slowly. I made a mistake. No. You made a choice. Zoe's eyes widened. You're acting like I'm the only one who did something wrong. You've been cold for months, like you weren't even in this marriage. You want to blame me for your affair? I turned, finally meeting her eyes. For your multiple weekends with Paul in a house I built for us? I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did, I cut in. Repeatedly. And you meant every single one of those lies that came after. Her lips trembled. He meant nothing. That's funny, I said, walking closer. Because he looked very comfortable in the kitchen, drinking my whiskey, wearing my robe, using the towels I monogrammed for you. She looked like she might collapse, so she sat back down. Silence stretched between us. Then she whispered, Are we really done? I leaned against the counter, arms folded. What do you think? Zoe stared down at her hands. You were never supposed to know. It was supposed to end. I thought I could fix it, You can't fix a corpse. I panicked. No, I said. You underestimated me. You thought I'd never check. You thought I was too boring, too loyal, too dependable. You thought I'd stay. Her head dropped. Let me guess, I continued. You thought you could keep the house. Keep me, maybe. Have both worlds and never pay for it. I didn't plan it like that, she said, shaking her head. But you lived it like that, I snapped. She finally looked up. I was lonely, Michael. So was I said coldly. But I didn't go looking for someone to fill your place. Zoe stood again, walking toward me slowly. Can't we find a way back? No, I said, stepping away. That place you're trying to reach, you burned it down. She paused. What if I'm pregnant? The words hit the air like a grenade. I stared at her. What did you say? She lowered her eyes. I'm late, and I don't know whose it is. Everything went still. I felt the blood drain from my face, but I didn't blink. I didn't move. I just stood there, absorbing the final knife she hadn't even meant to drive in so deep. I whispered, You're unbelievable. Zoe's voice cracked. I'm scared, Michael. I don't know what to do. You lie, you cheat, and then you ask me to carry your consequences. She stepped forward. I'm trying to be honest now. I laughed bitterly. Now? Now that the walls are closing in. Honesty isn't something you pull out when the floor's falling from beneath you. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't move me anymore. I'd seen the show. I knew how it ended. If it's Paul's, I asked. She didn't answer. If it's mine, more silence. Then here's what's going to happen, I said, voice low and sharp. You'll get tested. You'll prove who the father is. And until then, I don't owe you anything. Not even kindness. Her shoulders collapsed. You don't mean that? I stepped closer than I had in weeks, close enough that she could see what was left in my eyes. I mean every damn word. Zoe reached out, but I pulled back. Don't, her voice cracked. You loved me. I did. You still do. No. I love the version of you that never existed. She choked out a sob, but I was done. I walked away from her like I walked away from the lake house. Without looking back. The paternity test came back 3 weeks later. I didn't need a lab to tell me. I already knew. Still, watching Zoe open the envelope, hands trembling, eyes darting across the page as if she could force the result to change with her stare, it brought a closure I hadn't realized I was craving. Not yours, she whispered. I said nothing. She looked up, eyes glossy, waiting for anger, for shouting, for some kind of emotional explosion, but I didn't give it to her. I simply stood, picked up the envelope, folded it twice, then calmly dropped it in the trash. Zoe reached for my arm. Michael, wait. I didn't turn. There's nothing left to wait for. But what happens now? Her voice broke completely. I looked over my shoulder just long enough to say, Now, you pack. This apartment was in my name before we married. You've got 72 hours. After that, my attorney takes it from there. But I don't have anywhere. You had a lake house, I said. You had Paul. You had options. Now you'll have to live with your choices. The door shut behind me before she could say another word. 3 months passed. Zoe moved out quietly, her pride too heavy to let anyone see her beg again. She didn't return my things, didn't leave a thank you, not even a final message. Just silence. Paul tried contacting me once. I got a call from an unknown number. When I picked up, his voice came through hesitant, almost regretful. I hung up without a word. He sent an email next. Subject line, man to man. I didn't open. Some things don't deserve attention. Instead, I focused on the next chapter of my life. I finalized the acquisition of a property Zoe had once mocked me for even considering. She said it was beneath us, too modest, too remote. Now it's the cornerstone of my firm's expansion portfolio. Leah, my longtime business partner, was the only person who didn't treat me differently when the dust settled. She never asked for the full story, just supported me with a silent understanding I'd always underestimated. One night over drinks on her rooftop, she asked, "Do you miss her?" I didn't hesitate. "No. Not even who you thought she was?" I sipped my drink. "Especially not." Weeks later, Zoe went public with her version of the story. She uploaded a vlog to her new channel. Tears, trembling hands, soft lighting, a cup of untouched tea beside her. The title was "Healing After Betrayal, My Truth." She claimed I abandoned her, said I left her when she needed me most. She painted herself as a woman broken by love, a woman who only wanted safety, who made mistakes out of pain, who wasn't perfect but never deserved to be erased. It would have gone unnoticed, until she mentioned my name. Just enough to trigger curiosity, not enough to call it defamation. But she forgot one thing. People forget the man I used to be, but no one forgets the man I became. I waited exactly 48 hours. Then I posted my reply. No tears. No shaky camera, no soft piano music, just facts. I posted the footage she thought was deleted, her and Paul at the lake house. I posted the time-stamped deed transfer, the copy of the paternity result, the voice recordings she'd left on our home line the night before the test came in, begging me not to leave her, begging me to take her back, even if the child isn't yours. No commentary, just receipts. By midnight, her channel was flagged into oblivion. She posted an apology the next day, not to me, but to her followers. The comments were brutal. The sponsors dropped her. The email leaks that followed exposed how she'd tried to sell the lake house's story as a book deal, a memoir about forgiveness and spiritual awakening. It collapsed before the ink dried. Paul vanished from her life soon after. Rumor had it he'd moved abroad after his own career tanked. No firm would touch him after I quietly acquired the startup he tried to fund his way into. It folded in. 2 months. He never saw it coming. Neither did she. 1 year later, on a late summer evening, I stood on the dock of a new lake house. Not the one I'd sold, but one I rebuilt. Stronger, simpler. Mine. Leah stood beside me, barefoot, sipping. White wine. She had that calm in her eyes, the kind that comes from never needing to compete with noise. "Funny how life folds in on itself," she said. "How so? You lost a house. You lost a woman. Then built both again. Better." I nodded. "Sometimes you don't start over. You restart right." She smiled. "She's still watching you, you know." "I know. You ever think of giving her anything?" "No," I said. "Everything she lost, she handed away." I took Leah's glass and set it on the railing. We stood there for a while. No. Words necessary. Behind me, my phone buzzed once. An unknown number again. I let it ring. Because this life? It's not for the people who betrayed me. It's for the man I became when I finally stopped letting them.